Interior of Piccolo on the starboard side looking forward. Two blue bags or sail bags. The jib and spinnaker. The spinnaker's the top one, and there's two jibs in the lower blue one, a number one and then a number two jib. The other mainsail, or the other sail, the mainsail, already on the boom. This is the old wardrobe, sail wardrobe. The new sail wardrobe is sitting in the house. We're not using it, we're learning how to sail, and I didn't want to damage any of the new sails learning how to sail, so we're using the old sails. So there are two complete sail wardrobes. The new mainsail does not have a second reefing point, and in my limited experience, fair to say, I don't think you need a second reefing point on these sails. There is a spinnaker pole as well, which is fiberglass, and you can just see the end of it there. So not fiberglass, carbon fiber, so it's a good thing to have. The outboard sits inside, and this wood going across on the support for the mast step has just got a couple of thumb screws, well, sorry, not thumb screws, butterfly nuts, so they can be taken off quite easily once you've got the motor on the transom. I added the portaloo. There's 4 lockers, 2 on each side, so under the port berth you can see the wooden cover over one locker. On the port side the second locker is there. These things have got a lot of foam in them, so behind this bulkhead under here, and this sealed compartment, it's filled up with foam. Same on the starboard side. Electronics, I've added a battery sits down there. There's no solar panel for it, I just charge it up with the UPS, which I use as a battery charger, and if I want a UPS, an inverter as well, I could use it for that. So the battery sits down there on the foam. Behind the foam is the grey box for the transducer. So the transducer is sitting in antifreeze and is connected up to the depth sounder fish finder. The VHF radio is up here, accessible from inside and outside. VHF radio is a good quality ICOM, brand new. And the switches for everything are down here. The battery isolate is quite easily done. Instead of having an expensive switch, I'll just use a clip. So there's anchor light, tricolour on top of the mast, down deck light on the lower spreader, and the electronics. And when you're steaming, you have both these on, the anchor light and the tricolour. And when you're just sailing at night time, you have the tricolour, and when you're anchored at night, you just have the anchor light on. The wiring for the masthead lights and the VHF antenna cable run along through this grey conduit, through the deck penetration there, which has got a similar one outside, and then up the stay. So there's no need to disconnect the wiring up the mast when the mast gets raised and lowered. Piccolo came with one fire extinguisher, which was mounted underneath that board. I'll explain that board in a moment. I've installed a second fire extinguisher, which I haven't finished mounting yet, but that board sits across at this height here, and you can see the mark where it presses on the keel cable housing and comes right across. So that's a very good height for stepping into or out of the cabin. You can also sit on it okay, or if you're sitting on the companionway, you can put your feet on there quite nicely. The original upholstery fit out was that colour there, and that's a little storage area, one above each quarter berth. Some Farr 5000s have lockers or storage space right along here. Piccolo doesn't, so possibly an earlier build. There are brand new squabs, well, say brand new. The owner before the previous fitted the Piccolo out for racing, had new sails made, and also had the squabs recovered, so they're in immaculate nick. They're sitting with the new sail wardrobe in our spare bedroom. The portaloo I fitted, well, hardly fitted, but set it in there. So if you want to use the loo, then obviously the motor wouldn't be there, and the board that the motor sits on wouldn't be there either. There is accommodation for 4. It would be quite cosy. So the port quarter berth goes right back, and then there's a V berth at the front. Some people put a board across where I'm sitting and just make this part a double bed. I've seen one where on a Lena, I think it was, these were taken out and an A-frame put in, so that a full triangle bed was made up, sat right across. It looked really good. On the starboard side, the quarter berth doesn't go all the way back. That protrusion you can see sticking out is the fuel locker, which is outside in the cockpit. There's a bit of blue string with a white bit of plastic over it. And then where I'm sitting is the other part of the triangle berth, I guess, or part of the quarter berth still. Some Farr 5000s have wraparound windows. This doesn't. It's just got 2 windows each side, a small one and a larger one. Plenty of light inside though. When we bought Piccolo, there were quite a few leaks, cabin roof leaks, little screws like, don't know if you can see them, but places like this, these 2 are the hinge bolts for the companionway cover. So I seem to have stopped all the cabin roof leaks just with some gel coat. There's one leak not yet stopped. There's about a cup of water in it. We've just had some heavy rain for the week, and there's nearly a cup of water down there. That, I believe, is coming through underneath the sheet travel track, so I need to take that off and reseal all the screw penetrations. I'm not too worried, because a cup of water with the amount of rain we've had is hardly worth worrying about, and that's a major job. So that's the inside. That's the keel housing. It's not too protrusive, but it's trying to step down onto that. It's just a bit too far down. So having that board coming across is a real good idea. There was an option on the Farr 5000s for a galley, which sat sort of between the port quarter berth and the triangle berth. So if you're looking down on the floor, there's going across ships here, a bit of bracing in the fiberglass, and I think that the galley sat there. I've looked at getting a galley, I haven't got one yet, and I'm starting to think I don't really need one. Looking forward inside the cabin, difference between the Farr 5000s and the Farr 6000s. The Farr 6000 has a forward hatch, the Farr 5000 doesn't. There's not really enough room for it. But having said that, some people have fitted a forward hatch just forward of the mast step. On the outside of Piccolo, I'm just sitting in the companionway looking forward. The mast's had a bit of work done on it historically and had some things taken off and then put back in at different heights. Can't see from this height, but the large pad eye for the spinnaker pole is higher, I think, than what it was originally. The mast track works well. I've added the VHF antenna and the downlight on the lower spreader, and then right up the top near where that orange flag is, or just above that orange flag, is the tricolour light and anchor light. So they come down to the top spreader, and the wiring from the lower spreader goes up to the top spreader and then carries on down the port stay down to the penetration into the cabin. The sheets and halyards are all marked, got little labels on them. It seems to be quite a common thing. I've added these white hooks, so you've got somewhere to keep the sheets and lines tidy. It has 2 tracks for the jibs, depending if you're using the number 1 or number 2 jib. So you've got 2 tracks for the fair leads. There's one down there, that's for the number 1 jib, and the forward ones for the number 2 jib, and similarly on the starboard side. It's all pretty well set up for single man working or single man crewing. The yellow line here is a downhaul that I've added for the jib, so you don't have to go forward. So you can set it all up on the land, put it in the water, raise and lower the jib, whichever jib you've put on. If you set up the spinnaker, I have figured you can do the spinnaker from the cockpit as well, because it's all quite reachable. I don't have that board in, but if I had the board in, I'd be standing just that little bit higher and I can reach everything I need to reach when I'm on that board. No topping lift on a Farr 5000, so it's normal to use the spinnaker halyard. You just bring it round the outside of the shroud, and here it is currently. So that gets put onto the rear of the boom to act as a topping lift. Not a lot else to add. If you got any questions, give me a holler.